Hey folks, my name is Rene Enriquez and you are watching Uncensored.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Uncensored. Black Hand of the Mexican Mafia. Prison gang politics.
My name is Rene Enriquez and you are watching Uncensored. Well folks, we have another episode of Making of the Black Hand. In this video, again, if you're a first-time comer and you have not watched previous episodes of this series, this is myself, Chris Blatchford, and Richard Valdemar. This was shortly after my debrief with the FBI. I'm being housed in Walnut, California in 2002. And Chris and I had entered an agreement to collaborate on the Black Hand. And this is how the book first came about. This is the inception, right? We sat down with a video recorder, the old handheld kind. We put it on a tripod, kind of big compared to today's cameras. And we just started talking, you know, and from this, we extracted information for the book. And then we constructed it, put it in the manuscript. Chris fleshed it out. And I'm going to run this video and give you commentary as we go along the way. Hope you enjoy this episode, folks.
You overcame that whole process, you know, that politicking thing, and I learned how to prevail on those things. I learned that if you keep your feet planted long enough and firm enough, you're going to come out all right. You're going to come out all right.
So when you got back on firm ground in Tehachapi again, did you start doing hits again, or did you?
Well, at that point in time, I wasn't doing hits.
Yeah, that first thing I said, if you keep your feet planted firmly enough and long enough that you'll prevail in a political campaign. You know, that's an old Confucian saying, and I'm going to paraphrase, I can't remember it. I remember I read it at some point. Confucius wrote that if you stand on the riverbank long enough, you'll see the bodies of your enemies come floating by. And that's the truth. In the mob, it's the same thing. In political campaigns, in the mob particularly, it's about who can politic the hardest, who can sling the most mud, and who can endure the most psychological warfare, because it's a psychological warfare. 99.9% of the time in the shoe back in the day, you couldn't get at anybody. So it's really just a mudslinging campaign, and politics are really just about a tiny bit of truth and a whole lot of BS, right? And then garnering public opinion against your opposition, right? So I learned that early on, but it didn't make it any less nerve-wracking. I'll tell you straight out that during these periods that I'm talking about here, about the politicking, I was scared to death, man. You know, I got this look where I seem completely competent and capable and able-bodied, but my God, that's nerve-wracking. I don't know anybody that enjoyed going through campaigns, man, because that's all that sticks in your head. It's predominant, right? That's all you can think about. You go through every scenario. You think about everything that can go wrong or can go right. And, man, I think that's part of what caused the traumatic experience of PTSD is the continuous betrayal and campaigning and being campaigned upon. But let's run the video and see what I say here.
Uh-huh. The only time you do hits is during your path to being made. That's when you're really putting in a lot of work. You're doing a lot of hits. You're doing a lot of stuff. And after that, the mundane stuff, the routine stuff goes to the camaradas. Carnales are only called to do hits for matters of severe importance, other members, war, things of that. Things of magnitude. I mean, there's a limited amount of members that you can go through for hits, so it's got to be something big for a member to do it.
Yeah.
It's got to be a significant issue for a member to do it. Usually for the execution of another member. Or a war type thing or something like that, or personal matter.
So what happens then at Tehachapi then?
I parole.
Out of Tehachapi.
1988, I parole, hook up with some girl, and live with her for a little while. We have a good time, and I'm doing great. I'm not using drugs or anything like that.
Back in L.A.
Back in L.A., living right here in La Puente, as a matter of fact. And I started associating with Widow Shriakis paroled, Manuel Luna's paroled, Jesse Pelon Moreno's paroled, Chuco Castro's paroled. There's quite a few of us out, and we're starting to organize. We're having meetings. We have a meeting at my father's house. My dad meets a bunch of Mexican Mafia members. I tell my dad I'm having we We have a meeting in my dad's backyard. We have a barbecue.
Yeah, I remember that specifically. I remember the era. I mean, it was just a different era back then. Uh, I remember I paroled and I hadn't been using dope for a long time, maybe a few years, and I was meeting with all these brothers. And when I first met with Rocky and Shy, it was at the Ramona Gardens and the Hazard Projects, and we started talking about taking down dealers, right? Because nobody was respecting the mob at that time. It was as if the mob was dormant. It was after the Mundo takedown, and the brothers got indicted in that El Indelia stuff, and brothers barely started filtering out back to the streets. So when I got out there, it was like nobody knew about the mob. The mob had absolutely nothing going on, and it was still a pretty well kept secret. The organization, it was considered like a prison thing, right? But we started talking about taking down connections. Like if they didn't want to pay, we just go and rob them. And that's what I started doing. I remember that specifically. And in the meeting we're talking about, and my father was living in La Puente on Meeker, right off of Temple and Meeker, between Temple and Amar, right down Willow. So I remember it was like a new world to me when I paroled. After like 8 years in prison, I got out. I was free, you know, and I'm a mobster. There's no real money making going on, and we're figuring out a way how to make money, and we're having these meetings. In fact, we had the meeting right after Sluggo got whacked. I believe it was, if my memory serves me correctly, Manuel Castaneda or Gabriel Castaneda got whacked in the projects.
And I tell my dad, I'm going to have some friends over. He says, okay. They're good guys? Yeah, they're good guys, Dad. And at this point, my father has an inkling that I'm a Mexican Mafia member. He sees it on my chest, and, you know, he's heard different things throughout the family. And lo and behold, Rocky Luna shows up. He's murdered. He's dead now. They killed him at the Ramona Gardens Project. But he comes with his shirt open. It says Mexican Mafia across his chest. My dad's there, my grandmother's there, and there's a couple other people there. And Shryak comes. He's a bit intoxicated. He's been drinking. He starts calling my dad carnal. Orale carnal, this and that. And anyway, it's my dad, you know? Talk to my dad that way. I get him to the backyard. But my dad likes these guys. He generally likes the guys because they're personable individuals. Mm-hmm. And he knew they were my friends.
What, Rene? I like those guys. I can talk to them, you know.
They're funny guys. Rocky had a story a minute. He'd have you laughing. And he was just that engaging of an individual that he'd disarm you. He was so charming. He was an ugly brute, just...
My compadre would have coffee with him every morning in the project.
Really?
And my compadre was a project, police officer.
Yeah, he's
That is Valdemar speaking right now. Valdemar is talking about his father having coffee with him in the morning, and I tell you that Shai Shryak and Rocky Manuel Rocky Luna were the probably easiest going guys that I met. I mean, totally laid back, older gentlemen. Real mobsters, killers through and through. You know, they're killers, you know, and Rocky, they used to call him the godfather of the projects of Hazard, right? And he carried this air about him. All the youngsters told him hello, good morning. I mean, he was well respected, and he didn't flaunt it. He didn't wear it on his sleeve. He didn't wear his authority on his sleeve, nor did Shy. They just had it about him, you know? And they were good friends of mine. This is back in 1988, and I remember specifically we had hot dogs, hamburgers, carne asada. We had a nice little barbecue in the background. We had beer, and it was to talk about what we're going to do. I think Jesse Pelon Moreno came as well, if I'm not mistaken.
The Godfather over there. He was the Godfather of Ramona Garden Projects. That's what they called him. So these guys come over to my house, and we're having a barbecue, and we're discussing issues, and this time Shy is supposed to be on the lista. So I talk with Rocky about it, and Rocky tells me it's bogus. And I have my first wife with me at the time. We're spending some time together. We're getting divorced, but we're spending some time together. My first wife, Pam, is there, and she's present. And she's out of earshot, but she hears us talking mob business. And she confronts me, and after they leave, she says, those guys are mafia guys. And I says, yeah, they're mafiosos. And she says, and you were disagreeing with those guys, with those older guys? Because I was disagreeing with some of the aspects they were talking about. We're supposed to kill Thomas Grajeda, Wino, Quad's brother. They want to kill him, just get him and put a hole in his head. I told him, no, we got to vote. I'm still under the impression that this is how it's done. I'm still trying to be the go by the rules guy, when there are no rules in the organization. No, we got to vote, man. Let's vote. Let's go. It's called junta, and junta's a meeting of members. It's called junta, and we'll vote. We got them dead rights. Let's get them. They said, no, we're going to get them. We're going to kill them. And we're going to leave them on the side of the road, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm arguing with them about it. And my wife heard this. And then she tells me, oh, I was so proud of you when you argued with those guys. You're standing up to them. And I later thought, how can you be proud of me for, murdering this guy?
Yeah, it's ludicrous. I recall the incident where they wanted to whack Wino. And damn, I should have agreed to it back then, man. He would have been gone already. The guy's just sucking up good air. One of the Grajeda brothers. We're talking about Thomas Grajeda, right? And I remember they just said, like, we're going to get this guy, we're gonna pop him, and we're going to dump him, because that's how much dissension the Grajeda brothers had been causing throughout the years. They were like poison, a cancer that you just couldn't get rid of. Once you shut one up, another one pops up with this crap, because they keep repeating the same thing that's put in their head by their older brother Cuate, right? Daniel Grajeda. It was just like a rot within the organization. They were a rot. They were a corrosive substance that just ate away at the fabric and morale of the organization. Because they would embrace you like friends, right? Then they pump all this crap into your head and get you to nod with them and agree, and then they move away. And they let you go around saying that, and it just created so much stuff. And a lot of brothers fell into the spell. I did myself. I'm not judging anybody that was cast under that mystic spell they had, right? The ability to politic. Wino, not so much. Cuate was the one that was a master politician, a master tactician, right? But I should have agreed to it then, and we should have just did it.
The correct way. It was just so ridiculous. But, we came from a different world. I mean, she didn't know any better. I mean, she wasn't I guess, well-versed in terms of...
State raised.
Yeah, she wasn't state raised. She just knew that I was standing up for a principle.
Yeah.
Correctness, because I guess in terms of societal perception, she shouldn't have been proud of me at all. But in her eyes, I was standing up to these older mobsters, and I was a young guy, doing what was right. But I look back and I reflect on it, it was just ridiculous. He says, I'm so proud of you that you stand up. I'm just talking about killing the guy the right way, and they're talking about just killing the guy, It was just ridiculous. But we started organizing then. We put some crews together. This is when we started kicking in doors and taxing people and robbing them. We actually went on a robbing campaign.
This was 88.
88. This is when we started putting the name Mexican Mafia back on the streets. It had been dormant for a long period of time. You guys know about that. We hadn't done nothing for years.
Yeah.
When we got out there, we started going through all drug connections, kicking in the doors. We asked them to pay first, and if they said no, we robbed them. We beat them.
Drug dealers.
Drug dealers.
Yeah.
Illicit activities. Anybody doing illicit activities. Mm-hmm. Then I do a violation, and I come back out. After those meetings, after we put our name out there, we robbed dozens and dozens of connections throughout Southern California. Our name was known. As a matter of fact...
In fact, brothers up in the state were saying that I lost my mind, that I went off the hook, that I was doing too much. In fact, one of Cuate's connections over here, I'll just call him MJ in Bassett, kept complaining to Cuate that they thought I was going to rob them, and I was getting messages for Carnales, hey, what are you doing, and why are you doing this? I knew what I was doing. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was instilling the fear of the organization back into the streets, because Mexican Mafia had went to sleep. Literally had done nothing for over a decade. Not one hit, nothing. Not on the streets, right? And gang members did not respect the organization. They weren't violently opposing the organization, but they're like, nah, I heard about that in prison. It doesn't have anything to do with us out here, but it had everything to do with us on the streets, right? This is when the organization had not yet horizontally integrated into the Hispanic gang subculture. It was just a prison thing, right? And I was scratching my head like Like, what the heck, man? We're mobsters, and we can't get people to pay us. This is wrong. And I saw it from a different prism, right, than the brothers up at in the state. And I made a lot of enemies doing this. Because I went out there and did it. I didn't talk about it. I didn't ask anybody's permission. I just started doing it. I went to Rocky and Shy and says, "I'm gonna kick indoors, bro. It's time. They got to pay." And they agree with me. And I gave them a cut every time I did the little thing that we set up with one of their guys. One of the guys was Ray Soto, and another guy was I think his name was it was Shotgun's son from Clover. His name was Ray. So I was running around with those guys, and we were doing hits in Sereno, El Sereno, all over SGV. I mean, you name it, we were doing it.
Everybody was writing Pelican Bay telling them, hey, boxers going wild out here. Boxers gone wild. And it wasn't that we had gone wild. We're just putting the fear of God back in everybody. We're going to make our names known. Mm-hmm. The Mafia was going to be feared again.
Tell me, how did you pick the first guy, and how did that go down?
They gave him to me. What a Shy and Rocky. This is a connection over here in Sereno. I got a crew go with them. I actually thought they were setting me up for murder. I was scared to death. They say, meet these two guys. They're going to go do this thing. You just supervise. So they take me up to the hills of Sereno. Late at night, I get a gun and I give it to them. I'm just going on blind faith. I say, man, these guys are going to pop me with my own gun.
I was going to ask you, so you went up with them anyway, even though you...
Exactly. I thought they're going to pop me. Every time I went with a ride with a mafioso to a dark place, I always thought, this is it.
It's El Sereno.
El Sereno. This is a hilly, dark area, really scary at night. You're talking like...
Dude, I remember that like it was yesterday. It was Ray from Clover, Shotgun Son, Gilbert Sanchez, and Ray Soto from Puente. And the Cardenales told me, take these guys. They're going to hit this connection we know. Just give us our cut. And I said, cool. So I go get some guns, and I give them to him. But we go up into this dark and hilly area, and they have me park way in the back up here, and I'm following them, right? So they pull up behind me, and they both walk up to the side of my car. And I think this is it. It's going down right now. They're gonna just stick the gun in the window, and boom, boom, boom. And I couldn't figure out like why are the Cardenales setting me up to get whacked out, right? But it's just that paranoia. I don't know any mobster that doesn't experience it, that has that inkling, that apprehension and that fear. I know I did, and I'm not ashamed to say that I was afraid all the time. I was afraid all the time, but I went. I went, and I just figured, like, well, if they whack me, they'll find out I was a good cardenal, and they'll realize it was a mistake, and maybe they'll get the guy who pushed the issue, I was that naive back then. Like arguing with the brothers over the proper way to follow the rules to whack somebody out, right? That's how naive I was. I thought the rules were, in place to, be enforced, but nah, not in a mob.
12 o'clock at night. Everybody's asleep. I got guys with guns.
There's a lot of bodies dumped there, too.
I know. It's a very, very, very dangerous place. So they tell me, yeah, just go with these guys. It's kind of like the scene you see in that Pileggi story, Good Guys.
Yeah.
Where the
Goodfellas.
Yeah, the O'Connor guy tells Henry Hill to go with this guy to Florida and pick up this guy. It's like that. You feel like that every time.
Yeah.
You know something's wrong. So they set me up with this crew. Shotgun's son, Raymond Sanchez, and Ray Soto from La Puente. They're working on crews for Watershed and Rocky. They've been doing robberies forever. And they tell me, yeah, get on your feet, go do this, and just give us a little kickdown, give us a little kickback from it. I tell them, okay. So I get the guns, I get the cars, and these guys tell me, just follow me. I don't even know where I'm going. I'm following them, 75 miles an hour at night down the freeway, and then we end up at this hilly area, pitch black, and they get out of the car. I pull up in front of them, they pull up behind me, they get out on the other side, and they walk up next to me. I said, this is it. This is it, man. They're going to pop me right now. So I just, do a little sign of the cross. Forgive me, God. Accept me into heaven if I get whacked right now. And they come up, and one guy leans in and says, okay, we're going to go do it right now. I said, okay. And I'm still apprehensive because they take off, and they go behind me. So I think they're going to come up and pop me and take off. I'm thinking they're going to pop me and take off. I think it's a classic setup. They waited till I got out. I'm on the D stuff or something I don't know anything about, and they're going to pop me. But I see the guys come out later, boom, they say, follow us. And we go to their house, we split up all the loot. We got a couple grand out of the deal.
So they just went in a house, is that what they?
Yeah, they went and robbed and tried to extort a connection first,
Yeah.
but he wouldn't pay, so they robbed him.
Well, that's where that whole lock and low thing's going on, right?
What's-
Serena.
Oh, that's the green light.
Yeah,
Because they killed.
What's a specific clique within there? It's Lowell,
Lowell.
the
yeah.
Lowell clique.
Yeah,
The Lock Street's okay, and a couple other
Yeah.
groups within that
that split, that they all used to be just El Sereno.
El Sereno.
And then they split up.
Yeah, once they sided with
They killed Tonito.
they killed Tonito from Sereno, who was a member. She was actually a nobody. Nobody even knew him.
Yeah, we're talking about Tonito Rodriguez here. That when Lowell whacked him, right? Because he was really no account in the hood. He wasn't well respected by his homeboys. In fact, as soon as he got made, I heard he was throwing his weight around. One viewer wrote and told me all about how the hood opposed him, and it's not the only source. A lot of people told me that he wasn't really well known. It just became this individual that was put in power by virtue of his membership, and then began throwing his weight around his hood. I would think that being in the neighborhood, you'd cultivate that relationship. Like when I went to my neighborhood, I was loved and praised. I'd go to the Rincons, I'd go to Chivas, I'd go to the old hood, and everybody knew me, and I was welcome there. I mean, I had opposition, and it was typically from Weddle Buff's family. I had run-ins with them. We're going to do an episode on Weddle Buff's family in the upcoming future to tell you about the opposition and the position they thought they were in, and what ultimately happened to the family. But I cultivated those relationships because I was a homeboy. I came from the hood, right? And put in work for the hood as a youngster. And once I became a carnal, I didn't abuse that authority, right? I went down there. My homeboys took care of me. But Tonito, on the other hand, the individual we're talking about here, Anthony Rodriguez, he was despised by his neighborhood, and they whacked him for it. And this is the same individual you see in the hotel meetings. That first series we did in secret hotel meetings, pretty quiet in the meetings. He doesn't speak much. That's the same individual we depicted in that video series.
I mean, it for money. It was like selling a membership. They were doing it at that point in time. They were selling memberships. It became real corrupt at that point in time. They were making guys because he's making money for members, and it was just ridiculous. But they killed him for that, and that started the war with Lowell. But yeah, that was the first guy.
Yeah. Hey, I've got to take a whiz. Can I do that?
Yeah, sure.
Well, Chris Blatchford's taking a whiz. We'll talk about that, about gangs that survive Mexican Mafia authority. It is possible. There have been multiple gangs that have done it for decades, right? Look at Lowell. Look at Opal. Opal hasn't fought back the way that some of the other gangs have. And Lowell has not really made a huge impact against the Mexican Mafia. They haven't, other than the Tonito thing, which put them on the map, right? They whacked out a carnal, but they'll forever be on the lista for that. Like Cherryville killed a carnal. Speedy from Cherryville. And Cypress Park had killed Tonito from the feds when he paroled. Some of these gangs survived, right? They survived. And they continue to this day. Maravilla has opposed Mexican Mafia rule for decades and decades and decades. And it wasn't until Alfred Sandoval took them off the lista. And still a lot of them carry that mentality. Like, we don't pay taxes, we don't do this, we don't do that. I guarantee you nobody's saying that in prison. They could do that out here. And don't know, I'm not throwing rocks at the Maravillosos at all. I'm truly not. But I guarantee you they're not saying that in prison. They are towing the line, just like everybody else at the county jail. It's very fortunate that Chato got them off the list. But nobody's espousing that tax-free stuff anymore. And I've had a lot of comments when we mention Maravilla that we don't pay taxes, you don't know what you're talking about. And a content creator gets on there and flaps his jibs about Maravilla. Look, everybody understands that Mexican Mafia controls the prisons. When you're in prisons and you're in county jail settings that they control, you adhere to their rules. And there's no getting around that. Unless you're going to get locked up in PC, and then you could say whatever you want. But that's the truth. let's continue with this video.
You gotta hold it, man.
Here's Tony Work.
I'm a wuss, man, I'll tell you.
George!
Nicola Machiavelli's The Prince. I've read some of the classic stuff.
What got you reading all of a sudden?
I don't know. I just started reading.
So everybody always comments, what book should I read? What book should... I get that comment so many times, right? That question. Here it is right here. You know, I've read a ton of books, and I was a voracious reader. Right? It's how I expanded and my vocabulary, right? I'd find a word I didn't know what it was. I'd bust out the dictionary. I'd get the definition. Then I'd use that word in a sentence and write it over and over for a full page. You know, and that's how I incorporated that. I just didn't learn words. I used them, right, in my everyday speech. But it's how I learned. And people asking about the books, I think we're talking about that section right here.
At some point, I had difficulty reading when I was a kid because I didn't really apply myself in school. But when I got in prison, I became a voracious reader. You know, and I started reading psychology, sociology. I'd taken college courses in theology, economics, all kinds of different things.
Well, it must be frustrating now, I mean, now that you've sort of
I'll broaden my
educated
horizons.
yourself and broadened...
Well, in a non-traditional sense, in an unorthodox way, I've got a pretty good education.
Yeah.
Taught myself algebra, all these different things, you know, just once you learn something, you realize how little you know.
Well, just your vocabulary alone.
Well, you have to understand that to remain stagnant in prison is death, intellectual death. If you stay at one certain point, watching TV, vegetating in front of the television set, watching soap operas, becoming a soap opera connoisseur, that's what we call them, the guys that watch the novelas all day. We call them connoisseurs, soap opera connoisseurs. And guys are content in life to take up that position and never read anything else again. But me, I don't know, I became interested. You know, and once I learned one thing, I realized how little I really knew. And I want to learn something else. I want to broaden my understanding on something else. And I just started reading. And people would give me books or send me books or offer to buy me books. And I'd say, okay, fine. And I just started reading. And I read a lot of things, a lot of different topics. I guess I've kind of a Renaissance understanding in terms of literature. I've read some of the classics. I read some of the good educational books, some good literature. But I'm hooked on horror novels. I like horror novels. I love them. I love them. I don't know why. It's cheese. Yeah. It's all cheese. You know that. But it's a great entertainment for me.
Yeah.
It's a great entertainment. I can pick up a textbook and I read it laboriously. I mean, I look at it and you just turn the page and I got to take notes and I got to read the notes again and I got 2 days later I got to read it again because I forgot everything and just like. But you give me a horror novel, bam, I remember everything. You know, it's just the manner in which
Your mind just must prioritize what you like, I think.
Yeah. But I've read a lot. I've done a lot of reading.
Horror novels. Stephen King. That was my favorite author. He wrote these fat novels, right? Like The Talisman and the Dark Tower series and It. And I just love those books. I love those books. In fact, anytime I went to the hole, like you go to AdSeg, you have nothing. As soon as you process into the hole, the first thing I did was got a big book. And if a Stephen King book was there, even the Bachman books that he wrote under pseudonym, I read those too. I'd look for a big book because, like, reading was an escape. It really was. It took you out of prison. It just, you visualize these things that the author was able to write in a manner in which they jumped off the page, right? Like if he talked about a cold, brisk morning, you could imagine that going outside and being where there's fog and there's a little dew in the air and you have to put on a windbreaker. So that's the type of reading I loved, right? So you could immerse yourself in it. And because I was confined in probably one of the most secure prisons in the United States, it was my escape. It's how you keep your sanity, right? You find something and you immerse yourself in it, and it takes you out of the drab, mundane, everyday routine that is prison.
Well, let's go back. We had you to Tehachapi, and you were just getting out. You were reorganizing in the streets.
Well, we were organized. We were making our presence felt. We were meeting. There was about 5 high-ranking members out there. I was still a new guy, relatively new. I've been in about 4 years. And we started making our presence felt. And we did those robberies of those guys in Santa Ana. We did some robberies around here in La Puente. We did some jewelry store robberies. We were basically creating a financial base to work with. Everybody was independent in terms of the members. Occasionally we shared. They'd give us a job, or we'd give them a job, and we shared. They'd want a kickback if they turned us onto a connection to rob. We were getting arms, getting guns together.
Did you do the robberies yourself, or did you have somebody else do them?
I actually had other people do them, but some of them I went. I went in personally and did them. But most of the time I just arranged it. I get the transportation, I get the guns, and I provide a point of meeting, and I'd ask for a cut. Usually 50%. I usually get 50%. They get the rest. And that was with jewelry stores and everything else and connections. I get 50% of everything, and they
And
take
who was
off.
doing them? Gangsters?
Gang members, people who had been to prison before, who were considered camaradas and sureños. We utilized those individuals because they were loyal to the Mexican Mafia. But we couldn't go to the regular gang member on the street and say, I'm a carnal, go do this robbery for me, because they tell me, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Beat it. So we had to make our presence felt. We had to re-infiltrate these gangs. And this was a process that took us a few years. From that point, it was a few more years until we really started doing that. So I went back and did a violation. I started using drugs again. I had hooked up with a girl who was using drugs, and she just drew me right back into
Heroin?
it. Heroin, cocaine. Started using drugs again, and I just went right back to prison on a violation.
And so how long were you out?
Oh, about 5 months.
That's all?
6 months. Yeah, 6 months. The last month I was using narcotics.
So you go where?
Chino State Prison.
For just a year?
I actually did a 5-month violation, and this is the point in time where we're going to kill that guy, Bebito Alvarez. So that story was out of the chronological order. This is where we're finally going to get him. We pull him down. We finally reach the guy, and that's when he locks up.
Yeah, that's an interesting story, the Bebito story. I think I'm going to do an entire episode on how that went down and the measures that a Special Services Unit agent, Leo de Huerta, saved Bebito's life. This is the guy that politicked on me, remember, in Folsom State Prison. I'll do an episode on it, and we'll talk about that in the near future.
And
Is this Palm Hall?
exactly, we're going down for Veneno from Pomona's murder trial. His name is I forget his name. Duarte knows it. Veneno from Pomona. He killed a guy, an NF guy in CRC.
That's Freddie Gonzalez I'm talking about right now. He was an ex-carnal. He drops out of the organization relatively almost immediately after he gets made. He goes to Pelican Bay, flips his lid, becomes a Christian, goes to the PC yard, and becomes the head of the Two Fivers. And a lot of people don't know that he testified in the 1995 RICO case, like the head of one of the heads of the 2-5, testified in the RICO case, went into the witness protection program, and became this big leader of the 2-5, right? Kind of crazy. I'm going to be doing an episode on Veneno as well. That's coming up.
Well, we're going to kill Vivito there, and then they thwarted, the word he thwarts it. Then I'm transferred to Corcoran with Chuco, Castro, and Dati from Narana, and Pee Wee Aguirre. We all end up there together. And I parole. And I get out. Bodo Shryak picks me up at the county jail. They bring me down to the county jail because I have a warrant for a traffic ticket or something
It was
like
like
that.
89.
Yeah, about 89. Right before Christmas, or right after Christmas. I think it's the 28th. No, I think it's right in that general area. I'm kind of loose on the specific date. I might be misquoting here. But Widow Shryak picks me up. I call him up. He picks me up with his girlfriend. And we go out to breakfast. And we end up going to Rocky Luna's house. And we go back after seeing him, getting high. We got high on heroin. We stopped by Gilbert Reese's house. And 4 hours later, we're arrested. I got him out of jail 4 hours. And they arrest us on the corner of my house.
I remember this specifically. We were on Whittier and Euclid where my mom used to live, right? And it's me, Little Mo, and Wadoshai Shryak. And we had just shot dope in the morning, right? I'm fresh out of prison. I just got out. They released me from county jail. They transferred me down from Corcoran State Prison because I had a traffic hold or a traffic warrant, right? But they cite me out. I go right. I remember on the IRC card they put a number 7, and somebody told me, says, "Yeah, that means you're getting out, man. You got a number 7 in your IRC card." And they did. They that long process, right? Where you get processed out and released in the county jail. So I get out, I call Widow Shy, it's about 3 in the morning, and he says, I'll be down to pick you up, just call me when you're out front. And he does. We go out to eat, we have a blast. We go get high at Rocky's house, we go to the projects, the hazard projects, and we're cruising around. We go pick up Little Mo from White Fence, because that was my guy, right? I met him in Folsom, and Mo was always with me. Little Mo, my buddy, Gilbert Ruiz, was always with me. So we pick him up, and my mom said, we went to my mom's apartment, she said, Mijo, they're going to arrest you with Little Mo. He's got heat, right? And as soon as we walk out of the apartment and we get in the car, they see Little Mo and they pull us over and they arrest all of us. And I remember we're sitting at Hollenbeck Station on First. I think it's First in Michigan, First in one of those streets right there, right? Chicago, one of those streets right there. But it's Hollenbeck Station. We're sitting in the tank, nodding out, and we're talking. I was like, damn, we're going to get violations. And I haven't even been with a girl yet. I just came and hung out with you guys. This is terrible, you know? So they pull us out one by one. They check our arms for needle marks. And then they put you in a dark room and they do this thing with the light and your pupils, right? And they have this little card with the circumference of a pupil it tells them if you're loaded or not, right? There was no UA and no blood test back then. I'm sure they existed, but not for the street cops, right? They did a visual determination of whether you're intoxicated or not. So the cop tells me, I'm going to kick you, man. He said, I'm going to kick you. And I told him, I just got out 4 hours ago. I didn't even have time to get high, but I was loaded. So I go back in the tank. I said, I think they're going to kick me. And Widow Shy gives me the keys to his car, or he has them release the keys to the car to me when they release me, and I take his car and take it back to his girlfriend. I remember that. They got out, I think, that night or the next morning, but everybody got out. We were all back out in the streets within 24 hours.
First thing my mom tells me is, don't hang around with Little Mo because he's going to get you arrested. No sooner had she said that, I had changed into my clothes, my street clothes. You know, I've got a new shirt, pants, tennis shoes, and all that. I walk out the door and I'm arrested. And I looked at Gilbert. I says, "You dirty little dog." I says, "You got me arrested." So me, him, and Widow Shy go to Hollenbeck Station, and we hang out there for a little while. They kick us out. They cite us out. And from then on, it's just we had already talked to.
They just busted you 11,550 then.
Yeah. Well, they didn't even cite me. They just kicked me out. As a matter of fact, it was Eagleson from LAPD.
Oh, yeah, Bill,
no,
sure.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, too.
Eagleson, he cracked me. And I told him, hey, man, I didn't even get out. I says, if you would have waited an hour or so, you would have had me dirty and they would have busted me. And I said, I hadn't even got high yet. I was loaded too. I was messed up. You know, we had just shot some heroin and I was loaded. But he didn't detect it. He gave me that little test with the eyes and all that stuff with the flashlight, and still didn't detect it. So he cut me loose, and everybody else got cut loose the next day. But
Was he a gang officer then, or what?
I think he was a gang officer. This is
Yeah.
during Operation Hammer Sweep.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, sure.
He picked me up on I think it was a Tuesday or Thursday.
Yeah.
I remember that was under Daryl Gates. They had this thing, LAPD, on Thursdays. I think it was on Thursdays and Tuesdays. If Metro saw you, you were going to jail. So we knew not to be on the streets on Thursdays in East Los Angeles or anywhere in LA, because LAPD, you're going to jail for something, right? And it just so happened it was a Thursday, and they saw us, and the guys from Metro, Operation Hammer Sweep, came and got us and took us to jail. And it was Eagleson. Eagleson was a prolific gang cop, right? He was a street cop, LAPD. I met him. I think he's retired now, but he arrested me that day. There you have it, folks. I didn't know we're at the end of the video. Well, I hope this made for an exciting episode. We got more stories coming with this viewing of this making of the Black Hand behind the scenes. As always, I'll be back with another episode soon and some more profiles and stuff like that. I'm sure you guys are appreciating the content. We're putting a lot of effort into putting in more quality content, for long form content for everybody that works, everybody that listens at home. We want you guys to be entertained. As always, folks, stay safe. Enjoy your day. I'm out. Peace.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Boots.